Chapter 2. Caden. I had been feeling the euphoria, being near him, our hands greedily covering each other, him palming. It had been too long since I'd been inside his body. Gray's body had been addiction from the first time he was so tight, so deep, and so strong, like a good cup of coffee that you desired every morning, and I wanted my morning coffee every day since I'd first had a taste of his body. It made you want to wait. Just thinking about Gray had me breathless, and I couldn't imagine not having that anymore, especially when I'd just had a taste of him. When Tony called out to us, then banged on the door about someone trying to kidnap Gray's baby. Gray's eyes darkened, and his body trembled with fear when he turned and looked at me. I'd seen the same look in his eyes my father had, when he thought I'd been abducted. I was 7 when I had wandered away inside the supermarket. There were these toys I had my eyes on. When my father found me, I was playing with 2 miniature cars, Hot Wheels to be exact. It was my father's fault for introducing me to these wonderful cars as a boy. He'd given me his collection, and I needed more to add to them. My mother, with her infinite wisdom and bad advice, thought I wanted a sewing machine, but I'd fallen in love with cars and guys, and those were my true passions. My father grabbed me and held me tight with relief when he discovered that no one had taken me. That was what Gray wanted to do, hold on to Amy when he raced out of Tony's office half-dressed, and his clothes soaking up the water from our shower. I tore after Gray to be there to comfort him. Imagine how surprised and dumbfounded I'd been when I discovered that it was that specter, that apparition who appeared to show up at the most profound times, interfering with and fucking up my life, after Gray had made a commitment to me. I'd never touched or been near Grayle's little girl, Amy, and he'd promised me that I could hold her after we'd dressed. I was so looking forward to that moment, until that fucking cunt Austin ruined everything for me that night. To save face, I gave in and left with Sean. When I looked back, Austin was holding a baby bottle for Amy, and pretending to be a loyal father. Yeah, right. When it came to appearances, he could have gotten an award. From what I knew about Austin, he was full of shit in every possible way, and that act of playing a dutiful partner and father was his way of hiding what he truly was, a selfish sob. Sean pulled me out of the crowded tattoo shop, with me still dazed from my feelings for Gray, and hoping to see him again. Let's go to your place. Mine is too crowded. My roommate is forever having people over, and I need a rest. I heard Sean and I didn't hear him. My brain was still in Tony's office with Gray. When I finally focused and concentrated on what Sean had said, I replied, "Okay." I readily agreed, because it was the first time I'd had my own place, and I wasn't used to living alone. As an only child, I'd look for ways to always have someone around, but now I was a man, and I had to get used to the idea that I would be alone if I didn't find a man I wanted to be with. I'd prefer love over convenience, but I was a beggar, and as my mother would say, beggars can't be choosers. So I took the last best thing, Sean. We climbed into my Jeep and headed to my apartment. Before we got there, I informed him, "I don't have anything to drink." Funny you should say that. And Sean pulled out a 5th of vodka from his backpack. "Do you always travel with that?" I questioned. "Only when I think it's necessary, like now." "Tell me you have ice and we're all set," Sean said. "Yes. Of course there's ice, and I have orange juice and club soda." "Don't bother. I like my drink straight. Ice is enough for me. Mixing the drink with anything else dilutes it." Sean glanced over at me. Here was a man serious about his liquor. I'd never gotten into the habit of drinking after my last foray into the world of drinking in college. After one night of heavy drinking at a party, I vomited all night, until my stomach couldn't give out anymore. That cured me of a lot of things, drinking and drugs. It appeared I had a weak system, or whatever the fuck you called it, because I had terrible reactions to drinking and drugs. It was then I decided that too much drinking wasn't my thing. Therefore, I decided to concentrate on my studies, graduate, and return to Nevermore and look for Gray. I'd found him, and now it was because of him that I was going on a drinking jag. I don't know if it will make me forget Gray, but I'll try. I just hope I don't end up in the in the morning, or worse, in bed naked and with Sean. I wiped that thought out of my. However, I couldn't spend my young life obsessing over a man who Austin would never let go of. He would haunt us till the day he died, and I didn't have enough experience or time to waste on someone I couldn't have, because Gray was caught up with a child that could never be mine, and his. Austin would always be in the middle of our lives for the rest of our lives, and that too scared the shit out of me. This might seem like a defeatist attitude, but I had to admit that I was defeated by none other than Austin, and my own lack of resiliency. My ability to overcome Austin had been greatly undermined. Perhaps by my youth. Pulling into my parking garage, Sean bounded out when I turned off the motor, and when I glanced over, he'd opened the door on my side. "Come on, baby, I have a day and night to enjoy you." I glanced over at Sean because I didn't know what he was thinking. There was no way in hell that I would sleep with him the way I felt about Gray, and the memory of him calling my name as he became aroused. We reached my apartment, walked in, and Sean said, "This is nice. I'm going to be comfortable here." I raised an eyebrow and twisted my mouth. All of this he never saw. Sean strolled around looking at my new furniture, placing his hand over the backs of the chairs and sofa. He had a nice apartment, new furniture across from the college, but it looked used, and his place, from what he'd said, was full of guys and girls studying, drinking and smoking, and planning marches and demonstrations. His eyes lit up at the calm and cleanliness of my apartment. "This is a terrific place to crash," he said. "I can see you're hardly here." He'd been making plans for himself at my expense. It was my fault in not telling him that my place was my sanctuary, and I didn't want a boyfriend or partner in my space unless it was Gray. Sean made himself at home while I brought out 2 glasses. I just needed a sip and things would be all right with me, but Sean poured me a glass full of vodka. There wasn't much room for ice or anything to weaken the drink. I took a sip of the liquid and the heat hit my throat. "Wow," I gasped. Then I added ice to lessen the strength of the liquor, but it didn't. When I glanced over at Sean, he said, "Come on, drink with me. Haven't you heard? No one wants to be around a sober dude when they're drinking. If we're going to be together, we have to do the same things." I wondered where he'd gotten that impression. Who said we were going to be together? I just need a friend, not a lover. I don't have time for love, I lied. If it was Gray, I'd find time for love, sex, and whatever he wanted. I have to admit that we are in agreement, Sean admitted. I need a friend too, and right now, you are in need of one, I see. You're all upset over that older man, and I can be here for you. I'm closer to your age. Take a drink, and tonight forget him. So I took a drink at Sean's insistence, and the thoughts of Gray and Austin left my mind on the second glass. When I woke, I was lying in Sean's arms, and he was naked, and thank God I wasn't. I glanced around, and there were empty bottles of vodka. There's no way in hell I could have drunk most of that. Of course not. Had I would have been naked too, and hanging over my toilet just about now, I thought. On the side table, an open packet of condoms and a bottle of lube, a lamp and a clock. Those weren't mine, the condoms and lube. I couldn't have been that drunk where we'd fucked and I'd dressed myself afterwards? I questioned. Blinking and looking over at Sean lying face down, his clothes at the foot of the bed, his arm draped over me, I picked up his arm and slid out from under him, then my feet hit the hardwood floor. I took the opportunity to do a once-over of Sean lying face down. Not a bad-looking guy, but because he appeared to get drunk and pass out every time I was with him, let me know that even as a friend, there was danger in knowing Sean. It was time for me to take a quick shower and head to my business. I stood for a few moments, comparing his body to Gray's. I shook my head. There was no comparison. It wasn't that he was shorter or less muscular than Gray, but he was. I loved that Gray was tall, his body hard, muscular, and his shoulders wide, and when I lay on top of him, his long arms would cover me completely. Had I been in love with Sean, and we'd connected in a way that Gray and I had from the moment we laid eyes on each other, and he didn't drink as much as he did, it wouldn't matter that Sean wasn't as tall or as handsome. We didn't connect the way Gray and I had. I didn't know what it was. I couldn't get Gray out of my mind and out of my system. I thought of him every day. I could see his expression in those blue eyes, and how he'd smiled at me when I first laid eyes on him in the ice cream shop where I worked. His smile with those pampered teeth, his plump lips would haunt me to the day I died. I just hoped I hadn't given Sean the wrong impression, because I couldn't see a life outside of being with Gray. Turning away, I ambled to the bathroom with my not-so-morning hard. I stood there looking at my unruly hair, raked my fingers through it and sighed. Wrong impression? That ship has sailed, I murmured. The minute a man wakes up with a naked man in his bed and that man's not dead, that's the wrong impression, I thought. If Gray found out where I lived and saw me lying in bed with Sean, that was all he would need to end this relationship. Never mind that he lived with that terror, Austin, but men believed that when they invested their hearts and soul the way I had into a man I loved, it didn't matter what they did, they just didn't want the love of their life doing the same thing. Go figure. It was crazy, and there was no explanation for me thinking this way. I couldn't speak for every man, but my brain appeared to be wired like that. Maybe it wasn't just a man thing, but a human thing. Stumbling into the shower, I suddenly felt the weight of exhaustion descend over me. My legs felt heavy, like trudging through mud. It wasn't the drinking. I'd been working 7 days a week, before and after I'd opened my shop, with no idea when I could take off. Coffee, tea, and thee had become an overnight success in this small town, a place for college students to hang out, and we had to ask them to go home, only to see them standing in line when we opened the next day at the crack of dawn. Anyone else would have been ecstatic, but I wasn't. Those hours had taken a toll on my body, and with my love life in shambles, it was a wonder I could get out of bed. I wanted a life now, and I didn't have one at 22. Brian has helped manage the place along with my best friend Lane, and has grown the business beyond my expectations, I thought, reaching for the shower gel. Brian was a workaholic, and when he wasn't working, he was dating some of the guys and men who frequented my place. I didn't know where he got all of that energy at his age. However, he and Lane weren't going to let me slack off just because I owned the shop. I had to figure out how to get someone in that I could depend on to manage the place, and give myself as well as Brian and my best friend time off. With their work ethic and with lots of money coming in, Lane saw himself getting the home he wanted. He turned down Brian's offer to pay for a house for him and Scott. Something about wanting to stand on his own feet, Scott had said to his brother, Brian. With the way we were all working, something had to give. Turning off the water and stepping out of the shower better than I'd stepped into it, I dressed and left a note on the pillow near the bed for Sean. Sean, I've gone to work. Clean up all the liquor bottles and leave them in the trash. And don't forget your care kit by the bed. You won't need it for me. Take it with you. I'll discard my trash when I get home. There's bagels and cream cheese in the fridge, or eggs if you cook. Cold pizza slices if you wake later. Today is Sunday, but I have to work today until closing. I'm sure I'll see you around. Cade. It had been my hope that Sean would take the hint and be out of my place before I got home, because I was in no mood to be around him. I just wanted to climb into bed and hope this day passed without more complications.